Here at Tangent 1985, we watch everything, and because we watch everything, we try to review everything. But as there are only so many hours in the day, we can't every time give every movie the lengthy analysis they deserve. My name is M. Glenn Gore, and this is one of those times. Hold on tight because here comes in and out like Glenn, and today we're talking about Rampage. The following video review contains spoilers for the film Rampage. Proceed with caution. If you watched our recent review of the Tomb Raider reboot, you no doubt witnessed me go on a 3.5-minute tirade regarding how difficult it has always been to successfully adapt video games into feature-length films. I stand by that assertion, and having just taken in Rampage, the new sci-fi blockbuster hopeful based on the 1986 midway arcade game of the same name, I can safely say that nothing has changed. Spearheaded by Brad Peyton, the man who gave us Journey 2, The Mysterious Island, and San Andreas, Rampage reunites the director with his favorite leading man and all-around lovable lug, Dwayne Johnson. But dynamic duo or not, I'm sorry to report this outing centered on enormous monsters demolishing cities before turning on one another is as mindless, forgettable, and unspectacular as their previous collaborations. Johnson plays Davis Okoye, a primatologist, former Special Forces commando, and head of an anti-poaching unit with a serious distaste for people. What he does love is George, a super rare albino silverback gorilla whom he has cared for since birth, even going so far as to teach him sign language. Despite his lengthy list of accolades, Davis's character is dull and without shortcomings, which makes watching him succeed at every turn without any significant setbacks feel needlessly tedious and unfulfilling. Rampage opens with a scene on a heavily damaged space station where a plot unessential astronaut readies to abandon ship before it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. With strict instructions to deliver 3 canisters containing an experimental serum to her superiors in Chicago, the astronaut evacuates the station, but not before her escape pod is compromised by a violent, unseen creature. When her escape pod explodes attempting re-entry, the canisters crash down in 3 locations across North America. The first lands in the enclosure that holds George, exposing him to a luminous green gas. In less time than it takes to tell it, George grows to nearly twice his size, with considerable added aggression to boot. Things don't really get interesting, however, until George breaks free, teaming up with an equally vicious wolf and a gigantic dinosaur-like crocodile, both of which we learn came into contact with the other 2 canisters. Davis joins forces with discredited genetic engineer Kate Caldwell, played by Skyfall and Pirates of the Caribbean's Naomi Harris, who developed the serum responsible for turning the animals into the ravenous, building-sized beast currently paving a trail of carnage and destruction across the country. The mutated apex predators are being called to Chicago, to the headquarters of the corporation that made them, by a kind of homing beacon only they can hear. This is of course nothing more than pure setup to get us to the one scene of any real importance, the complete demolition of Chicago by the film's 3 raging super beasts. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Too much of Rampage's 107-minute runtime is devoted to exposition and setup, to scene after scene of characters explaining things to one another instead of finding innovative ways to show them. Harris's Caldwell basically exists only to provide one info dump after another, and while I'm a fan of Dwayne Johnson, an insulting amount of his time on screen is designated for immature pissing contests with other male characters, to pompous exhibitions of macho dick measuring. The addition of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays the scenery-chewing government agent Harvey Russell, with his forced cowboy accent and grating demeanor, doesn't help. He's obnoxious in the role, almost to the point where it makes you wonder if there was a contest on set to see who could be the more irritating character. Not to be outdone, Malin Ackerman of Watchmen fame serves as one of too many villains aboard for the duration. She plays the sinister Claire Wyden, owner of the company that created the serum. Aided by Carol's Jake Lacey, who plays her idiotic brother Brett, these 2 bore and annoy in equal measure respectively. Their motivation is, of course, money, though it's never really made clear how creating monsters capable of destroying the planet helps them get richer. I'm forced to assume there was a very different script for Rampage that was jettisoned early on in the production, as the movie seems replete with character arcs and plot lines that either don't come back up or are just abruptly cut short. The Wydens contract a mercenary named Burke, played by Joe Manganiello, to hunt down and capture the wolf, and while the film sets him up to inevitably cross paths with Dwayne Johnson's Davis, it doesn't happen. He is instead unceremoniously killed long before the climax. The same occurs with a number of Davis's associates at the enclosure, who are given just enough screen time and characterization to make you wonder why none of them ever return beyond the first act. Once the aforementioned demolition of Chicago begins in earnest, matters take a turn for the mildly entertaining, but that enjoyment is marred by the pervasive and inexcusable Man of Steel-level disregard for human life that is immediately placed front and center during this scene. Rampage continues an unsettling trend I've seen twice before recently. As with the destruction of Tokyo and the climax of Pacific Rim Uprising, by the movie's end, Chicago was all but leveled, yet Davis and George are applauded for saving the city, which is a difficult case to make at best. Regrettably, the movie feels phoned in, as though everyone involved believed that because the concept was so absurd, they didn't have to actually work to make it engaging, and that negligence shows through nearly every scene. Rampage is a dull, brainless affair that honestly could have been far better if it had just been able to get out of its own way. This is a movie about humongous monsters wreaking havoc on a major city, a premise that isn't even remotely new, but one countless filmmakers before have had a blast breathing new life into. And if all you're after is that, then this comes highly recommended, but with its poorly written, exposition-heavy dialogue, its crude, childish humor, its many uninteresting, unexplored characters, and its distressingly inconsistent tone, Rampage fails to be the one thing it absolutely needed to be to succeed in my eyes. Fun. 2.5 stars, as mediocre and uninventive as they come. That's it for today's episode. As always, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for more updates. Until next time, you were just in and out like Glenn.